Well, questions over Boris Johnson's probity aren't restricted to goings-on in Downing Street during lockdown. Today, an email released by the Foreign Affairs Select Committee appears to contradict his version of what took place during last summer's evacuation in Afghanistan. At the time, there were claims that Boris Johnson had pushed for animals to be flown out of the country while Afghan people were struggling to get evacuated. The cats and dogs belong to the Newsnight animal rescue charity, which is being run by a former British Royal Marine. The Prime Minister has always denied having been any involvement in their evacuation, but today, one of the emails disclosed by the MPs suggests otherwise. Now our UK editor Seema Kotecha is at the Newsnight wall with fresh information.
Thank you, Kirsty. Now, cast your minds back to the summer of last year. The Taliban had taken over much of Afghanistan and people were being evacuated out of the country. Former Royal Marine Pen Farthing ran an animal shelter called Newsnight in Kabul. It rescued dogs, cats and donkeys. Now, he was trying to get them out, and as you can see from his tweet, he managed to do that at the end of August. The tweet says, "Yes, I managed to get the animals of Newsnight on a flight to safety." He, along with 150 of his animals, were flown to the UK on a plane paid for by donations. But there were concerns that his evacuation took away resources from those who were also trying to get out. For example, those who were eligible to come to the UK under the government's relocation scheme. Mr. Farthing has always said the British government wasn't involved in the operation. Then in December, a Foreign Office whistleblower told a select committee that the department had received an instruction from the Prime Minister to use considerable capacity to help Mr. Farthing's animals leave Afghanistan. Soon after, the PM denied having anything to do with it.
The Foreign Affairs Select Committee has been hearing from an official who says the response to the situation in Kabul was chaotic and has suggested that you yourself intervened to try and get the Newsnight animals out, and they got priority over some Afghan people. Did you intervene that way?
No, that's complete nonsense.
And today, an email released by MPs suggests he actually did play a part. The message from an official on the 25th of August last year says, "Charity Newsnight, run by an ex-Royal Marine, has received a lot of publicity and the PM has just authorised their staff and animals to be evacuated." And now Newsnight has more information about how widespread the understanding was that the PM had played a role. I've spoken to a Foreign Office staffer who says an info note submission dated 26th of August included the line, "In light of the PM's decision earlier today to evacuate the staff of Newsnight Animal Charity." Now that suggests he was involved in that decision. And there are other military and Foreign Office sources who have told me the animal evacuation was authorised by him and meant civil servants and ministers in London being caught up in making it happen. This meant, they say, many were diverted from helping those on the ground. The Prime Minister is adamant he had no role in authorising individual evacuations from Afghanistan, including Newsnight staff and animals. His spokesperson said, "At no point did the Prime Minister instruct staff to take any particular course of action on Newsnight," while the Defence Secretary, who was in charge of the evacuation, said this.
The claims that have been made in emails from the Foreign Office, who were not responsible for the actual evacuation operation, I don't know where they come from, but they certainly don't show the reality, which was I was in charge, Prime Minister never asked me, it was nonsense.
So what happens to the Afghan people left behind and how do they feel about today's findings? We've spoken to someone from Afghanistan whose brother worked for the British and was unable to get out.
Who were either directly hired by the UK government or were hired locally on behalf of the UK government in Afghanistan. Their life remains in danger now.
At a time when Boris Johnson's honesty is being questioned, another episode where there's a difference between what he's saying and what's being written in emails isn't exactly ideal for the man hoping to continue to be our Prime Minister.
Seema Kotecha. Well, Jake Berry is the Conservative MP for Rossendale and Darwen, who leads the Parliamentary Party's Northern Research Group. Thank you very much for joining us, Jake Berry. Let's first of all deal with this. Emails, Foreign Affairs Select, several sources, as Seema made clear, that say it's pretty clear that Boris Johnson definitely, personally, was involved in bringing those animals home, despite his denials. What do you make of that?
Well, I think the Prime Minister and his spokesperson have been absolutely clear that he had no involvement. But let's not focus on that. Let's talk about Ben Wallace, who is the Defence Secretary. This was a military operation. Ben Wallace, quite correctly at the time, said the British government will prioritise the return of people who are suffering because of the fall of the government in Afghanistan, not the return of animals. It was a military operation. He was in charge, and he's absolutely clear that the Prime Minister played no role in it whatsoever. I don't think you could have a stronger denial or from Ben Wallace than that, and it's something I accept.
Is it emails out of the Foreign Office? Are they fakes?
I mean, I haven't seen the emails. I've seen pictures of them on the screen. I think as
do they look
people
like
have.
fakes?
Look, I simply couldn't say. I'm not saying for one moment, I'm sure they're not. But junior officials in government departments or officials in government departments often, my experience with the minister tells me, often praise in aid their sort of views of Downing Street or Number 10 without, in truth,
but that's
knowing
different.
whether
Downing
it's
Street
correct.
Number 10 is actually different from actually saying
Yeah.
the Prime Minister. I mean, it's a serious offence, of course, as you know, to suggest that the Prime Minister is saying one thing and not another.
I think Ben Wallace has been clear. He is the Defence Secretary. It was a military operation. He was in charge. The Prime Minister played no part.
But let's just be clear. If indeed it is proved to be the case that the Prime Minister was involved, people were working day and night. Civil servants were working day and night to get as many people out as possible. And by the looks of these emails out of the Foreign Affairs Select, it looks like civil servants were being diverted to make sure that these animals and their handlers got out. I mean, what does that say to Afghans apart from anything else?
Well, I think the British government has been absolutely clear that it was prioritising the return of people from Afghanistan. I don't know who that email's from. I see that it's redacted. I'm sure that's the correct way of dealing with it.
Widespread emails from Foreign Office and throughout Whitehall, and military sources say that it was direct for Boris Johnson to be, he was involved.
I think the Defence Secretary has been absolutely clear this was not a Foreign Office-led evacuation. It was a British military defence-led evacuation. I think you would join me in saying what a brilliant job our armed forces did actually saving so many people's lives. The Defence Secretary was in command. There was no involvement of the Prime Minister. He's been absolutely clear about that.
Just let's turn to Sue Gray's report, and of course we do not know the